Today is July 14th, and I am interviewing Derrick David Stinson in Springfield, Illinois. And let me see, you are how old?
61.
61 years old, having been born March 12th of 1956. And Jill Layton is the court reporter for this interview, and my name is Sue Burkholder. So for the recording, would you please state what war and branch of service that you served in?
I was served during the Persian Gulf War, and I was in the Illinois Air National Guard. I started off in the Illinois Reserves,
Okay.
the 928th. It was located at O'Hare. Then I transferred over to the 126th Air Refueling Wing, which was also located at O'Hare.
Perfect. So let's start by, could you tell us where and when you were born?
I was born here in Chicago. My mom said it was cold. It was in March. It was pretty cold. And actually, I was born at home, but in those days, you was always born in Cook County Hospital. So,
And what about your parents? What were their occupations?
my mom retired from the post office. My father retired from CTA. He was a busing superintendent, and she was a manager for the post office.
Okay. And what about siblings? Do you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, I have several brothers and sisters. I have two sets, on my mom's side and my father's side.
Okay.
So I had to do it that way when I started telling you about it. So I'm the oldest son, both of my parents. And then my mom also has Jacqueline Sabrina and Eric Lamont. And then on my father's side, my oldest sister, she passed on, was Juanita, and then me, and then Elvin Jr., then Diane, my bookend, then Andre, and then Alpha.
Okay.
And then my youngest brother is William.
Did any of your family members serve in the military?
Yes. My father was in the Marines. He was a Korean War veteran. And so he was over in Korea. My younger brother, EJ, we call him, he's in the Marines. He was in the Marines. He did 8 years. He had wonderful duty. He did all 8 years in Hawaii. His son is in the Marines now. So Elvin Sr., Elvin Jr., and Elvin III, all of them were Marines. I served in the Air Force. My sister Diane, she's also served in the Air Force. She's retired from the Air Force. And she was also retired Master Sergeant.
Okay. What were you doing before you entered the service? And what was your story about going into the service? Why you decided to join?
Well, when I was younger, I wanted to go to the Air Force Academy. But, things didn't work out. I started having children young, so then, of course, now you can't go to the academy. I just started working. And so the opportunity came up. I still wanted to go in, and I wanted to get some extra money, educational money, stuff like that. So I decided to go into the Air Force Reserve. That was back in 1983. I was thinking about my sister, Jackie, and her birthday is the 16th of June, and that's when I joined up.
So when you went to basic training, tell us a little bit about your experience there.
I had fun in basic training. When I went to basic training, I was about 27 years old. So I was a pretty older guy, in a squadron of like 51 other airmen. And I was one of the oldest. There was a couple other old guys there too. But it was kind of fun to me because I'm older and I'm more mature, and I had already been told when you go to basic training, just blend into the woodwork. And so that's what I tried to do. And, so I didn't get excited, all that kind of stuff. Our squad leaders were younger. They were younger. And they used to always tell me, come on, Stinson, you never rush. I said, yeah, but I'm never late. So that was fun.
Did you meet any friends or any fellow soldiers in basic that you kept in contact with?
A few. We keep in contact through this thing called Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Facebook is the thing. How I got on Facebook was actually for the sole purpose of keeping in contact with my friends I had met from all around the country. That's what got me on Facebook, and it just got out of hand. But still, that's why I'm there. Another interesting thing when I was in basic training, I thought I was in trouble because the drill instructors kept watching when we be marching. They kept watching, and I thought I was out of step. But what happened is that they liked the way I marched, and I ended up being the guide for the squadron. And the female drill instructor, she was from Chicago, and I didn't want to do that. I was hoping blending into the woodwork. I wasn't, you don't volunteer. You're out front, guide. You make a mistake. Everybody's following you. So that was interesting. It was fun, and that was a little intimidating.
So were you asked to step up for other, to lead in some way in other ways during basic training?
No, that was pretty much it.
Okay. All right. So when you were finished with basic training, did you go to any advanced training?
Yes, I went to tech school in Wichita Falls at Shepherd Air Force Base, and most of the CE training was done there. Civil engineer training, all our tech school was pretty much there, unless you were going to be a fireman or something, and then you had to go to to Chanute Air Force Base, which was here in Illinois, but it's gone now. That's where they did the training for the firemen. So we went there, and there is when they tried to see if you wanted to do something else. But what was my goal? My goal was always to blend in. So I didn't want to be a squad leader. I didn't want to join the drill teams, any of that. I just wanted to go to school, to do the best I could in school, and graduate, and get back home.
So, was there anything in basic training that you learned that just kind of made you question what you knew about the military before you joined?
Yeah, there were a couple, 2 or 3 things. We got there in the middle of the night. Instead of putting us to bed, the first thing they did was take us to a barber shop. So about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, we all lined up going in the barber shop and cutting off all your hair and all that. Okay, then we're going to go to bed, right? We've been traveling all day. No, then you go over to this little factory-like line and you get these uniforms, and they told us that we were pickles because then they still had the green uniforms back then. And we got all that. Then okay, we're going to go to bed. No, then we had to go to the medical center because we had to get our eyes examined and all that because you had to order glasses. We got our birth control glasses is what we call them. And we finally got around to kind of late morning. They took us and we got something to eat. And then they allowed us to go to get a few hours. And then we got up and then we immediately started doing different type of duties. Like going to the rifle range and cleaning rifles. For everybody else who was shooting, we cleaning their rifles. Or going to the dining hall and doing KP duty.
So what was a day like for you in basic?
We were in formation at 5:02 in the morning. And we did our physical exercises, and then we went for our little walks. And we never knew where we were going. A lot of times we would end up marching all the way across the base. And Lackland Air Force Base is a pretty big base. And you just marching. And then when you were marching to wherever you were going to go for your next thing. So pretty much from, like I say, we get up a little bit before 5. The first couple of days, the drill instructor would come in making a whole bunch of noise, making sure that we got up. We were not allowed or trained at the point to do our own called dorm guard training. So we had other people that was coming in and actually doing the guard training for us, which is 24 hours around the clock. Someone was there. And of course, we had the GI parties, cleaning up the place. One of the interesting things for me was they had this persistence that you learn how to fold your underwear in 6-inch squares. I thought that was ludicrous. They couldn't understand that. Finally, they told us towards the end of basic training, the reason they wanted to do that because a lot of people don't know what kind of jobs they're going to get. And they said, well, the reason why they were so ticky about you folding those 6-inch squares in your underwear, what happens if you got life support and your job was preparing the parachutes? and if you didn't do it correctly, somebody could die. That's what they told us. I think they just really wanted us to just for, just give us something to focus on. 6-inch square underwear.
Was there a memorable instructor that you can recall from that time?
And yeah, the one that told me she was gonna take that guy down with my behind if I let her flag drop. I thought that was pretty significant. I never forgot it. I can't remember my name, but I could see her face like I'm looking in yours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's the one that pulled me out the crowd and told me I was her new guy.
Okay. So you finished basic, you've gone to advanced training. Then where did you go?
After I finished training, I was in the Air Force Reserve, so I actually went back. The job that I had was this was called environmental support. So in civilian terms, it's like a water plant operator or a wastewater plant operator. One of the reasons why I chose the job, I said I was trying to get some extra money, and they got out to do the book to show us the civilian counterparts to what we were going to be doing in the military. And the guy said, "You know about Navy Pier?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You know about that water plant down there?" He said, "This is what you're going to learn to do. So you will be able to actually find a job when you come out." Of course, there was a lot of people saying, "No, you're never going to find a job and that stuff," but that's not true. So I chose the job. They gave me $10,000 to sign up for that position, that particular job. It was a signing bonus.
Okay. So were you ever deployed?
Yeah, I was in the Simmons and Indian Squadron, so we got deployed. I spent a couple of short tours in Honduras, living with the Honduras Army. That was something that was one of the best experiences, because the Honduran Army, they took their soldiers off the streets. They were like young teenagers, like 14 and 15, and just grabbed them up and forced them to go into the military. And their weapons were not the same standard as ours, and they played games. So shots would get fired. You still had the some sort of thing going on in those mountains between the Hondurans and someone else. So there was a few times that someone decided to take pot shots at us, but pretty much that was something I have not ever forgot. Sitting down, you eating, and when you're doing that type of duty, you're pretty much doing 12 and 14-hour days. It was 116 degrees, but we were doing what we call nation building. So the first time we went there to build. Some of us were building wells, digging wells, and some of us were building firehouses and schoolhouses, and that was our job.
How was the well, did you have local food while you were there, or what was that part of your life like during that time?
We were not allowed to eat the local food. Everything that we had to come from us. My job was water purification, so we had water purification machines. So part of my responsibility was producing that water that we need on a daily basis. So we produced our own water. You had the children would come to our compound and they would bring bottles. They wanted that water because the source of water that they was getting was the same source that the animals was running through. Somebody was washing clothes in, but that was their source of water. So you kind of think about the situation. That was very eye-opening. It was shocking. And I come from the south side of Chicago, so I seen what was supposed to be poor, but when you get down there into that country, and then it's like people living like kings and queens up here.
Okay. Is there anything else about that time that you can think of you'd like to share?
Well, it was still when you working with soldiers from other countries, and then they so much younger, and then they're forced into it, and you have to. It's a dangerous situation. There had been several incidents when we thought it was going to be a shootout between some of us and some of them, because these guys, we stand in guard duty with them, they would disappear, and then they'll come back and where you been? You know, you supposed to be watching my back. You know, did they get upset and start pointing their weapons and stuff like that? That was not really a good situation to be in. I won't ever forget that. I don't wish that on anybody, but that's what they did. And we watched them. You know, they kind of believe in corporal punishment for those young soldiers as they forced into the military. They would beat them with cane sticks and stuff like that if they kind of disappeared. And whenever they called them when they came back, that's what they would do. But what would someone forces you to come in, pull you off the street? Of course, you know, you're young, you're gonna try to get away. They had their. It's one particular incident when one of the soldiers was trying to take advantage of one of the young ladies that was passing through our area while we were still in guard duty, and one of our airmen, his parents were missionaries, and so he spoke fluent Spanish, so he knew what was going on, and he went over to try to correct that incident, and the guy turned on him with his rifle. Nothing happened, but it still is the potential. So I won't ever forget that.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would say, as far as I'm concerned, he could have been the one that was shooting at us one night, so I don't know.
And how long were you there?
We were there for 45 days. And they was trying to get us to hang around, especially those of us who provided water. I opted not to do that.
So you went back home from there?
Went back home from there, and basically what happened is when Desert Shield started, what they did, they activated us, and we started making these little maneuvers. The first thing was to Holloman Air Force Base down in New Mexico. We had our desert training there. Once we finished that, then all our names went to Washington, D.C. into a special computer database, so they knew who had been to the training. Then we went back home, and then when part of the wing was going overseas, then that's when we started making those little short trips down to Honduras.
Oh. It's okay.
No.
Keep going.
Yeah.
There you go.
Down to Honduras, and I went to wonderful places like Seoul, Korea, where we worked every day, 10-hour days.
Tell us about that.
Except for the working hours, it wasn't bad. Like my job was, I worked in a water plant, so part of the time I worked in a water plant, part of the time I worked in a wastewater plant. The really cool thing about working in Korea is because everything, you had all those Patriot missiles, all that stuff was there, and I got a chance to work your flight line.
I'm sorry.
Work your flight line. Yeah, we had to, part of our duties was we had to test the fire suppression systems inside of all of the hangars where they kept our jets and stuff like that. So that was a really cool duty. Yeah, I had some clothes made, tailor made. I don't know if I can fit them now, but some of them. I think one suit I still try to get into every now and then. But pretty much, other than that, you have the certain rules. It's certain things you don't do. Certain places we couldn't go. They call them red light district. You could walk into a barbershop and lose your life for your ID. Those type of things. We got hazardous pay for being in Korea, but still, that's one of the things being in the guards of the reserves. You get mobilized a lot because the total force is divided 1/3 guardsmen, 1/3 reservists, and then 1/3 the regular military. And so most of the ones that get deployed is not the regular military, it's the guards of the reservists. So we are the ones that could pack up and be gone in 48 hours or 24 hours if you part of the what we call the Red Bull. We were prime beef, and they had Red Horse. And so Red Horse could be gone, flying around the world, jumping out of airplanes. That's why you had to throw those unboard and 6 squares, because they jumped out of airplanes and used parachutes to get where they going. And prime beef, we had 48 hours. But basically our job was to go anywhere and build a base from nothing. That was our responsibility. So we spent a lot of time training in that and a lot of deployments in that. So we didn't get a lot of deployments where we actually lived in the nice dining halls that the Air Force is so famous for.
So where else were you deployed then?
Let's see, Okinawa, Kadena Air Force Base.
Okay. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was really good. I think my life changed when I heard we were going there, And we got off the plane. It's like something that the atmosphere was so different
Mhm.
that physically my metabolism changed. I think from the time I got off the plane and hit the ground. Because when I got there, I was weighing 126 pounds. When I left, I was weighing 146. And that all happened in about 30 days. Yeah. And I've been gaining ever since.
And what was your duty there?
Now, being in a civil engineering squadron, even though you have your main field, especially with mine was water and waste and mobile water purification, you end up being an apprentice electrician, an apprentice carpenter, and Kadena, I was an apprentice welder. So I learned a little bit about welding, arch welding, very dangerous. I didn't do very much in my field because there we were actually working on some of the barracks. Some of the barracks that were not livable, and we needed to either tie something down or do some repairs.
Um, how I want to ask you about more of your deployments, but I wanted to ask, how were you as a guard member treated by like regular Army?
The Army hates the Air Force. Period.
Or I'm
It
sorry,
doesn't
regular
matter.
Air Force. I
Oh no.
apologize.
Oh well, there wasn't any issue. We all went to the same tech schools. You know, when I walked in, when I had my rank, then they knew that if I was a tech sergeant, I was a medical sergeant. That's what I was. It wasn't even an issue. I usually walked in and started. Once I became a tech sergeant, a staff sergeant, I'm in a supervisor position, and so we would go and when I walk into a shop, then if I was the highest ranking guy or the ranking guy there, then I'm the supervisor. It's just no problem. The problem was always with the Army because they said the Air Force had too many people with rank. And so they always have a lot of privates and some specialists. And then when our unit come in, because we going to school, we taking these classes, we going NCO school, so we getting promoted. So we would go someplace like one trip to Honduras. We actually lived up in the mountains with our Army, and I had to go in and take over the supervision of their water purification operation when I got there. Matter of fact, the brigade colonel, who was the base commander, when he heard that it was some Air Force civil engineers had landed at Sotocana Air Force Base, he sent his personal helicopter, and he told our commanding officer what he needed. And so I was part of the away team because I had to go take over the water. A couple of electricians. It was a mess the way they had laid things out. Trust me. By the time we left there, they was glad that Air Force came in because of what we were able to do. The only problem we had, and it reminded me back to those basic training days, is that we had a command sergeant major for the battalion, and we were living outside of the compound, and we needed a water buffalo. So we was instructed to go and get his water buffalo. So he made it, we was his thing from this whole tour where we were there. And he actually dug a grave. We didn't know what he was doing. The man dug a grave outside his tent, and we didn't know what he was doing until he put up a headstone and it said RIP Air Force, because we had his water buffalo. Well, he was the command sergeant major. We had his water buffalo, but we came there to help out to support the Army. That's why we were there. So when it came time to turn in our weapons, none of our weapons were clean enough to be turned back in. No matter how many times we cleaned them, they were not clean enough to be turned back in. We were about to miss our ride home. Back to the States, cleaning rifles. And so our commander selected a group of volunteers to stay there and clean rifles while the rest of our squadron got back to Sotocana and got prepared to, go home. So when another unit was coming in, a guard unit from Ohio was coming in to take our place. And their commander looked at the weapons, and he told the command sergeant major, he said, "These weapons look pretty good to me." He says, "Well, sir, are you going to take the responsibility for those weapons?" He said, "Sure." He didn't know what he was getting into, because I'm sure by the time he got ready to go, he got the same routine. The weapons were never clean enough. So those type of things you run into. Not so much as the regular Air Force versus the Guards and Reserves is is some other branches of the service who don't particularly like how we do things.
Were you awarded any medals or citations during your time?
Yes, I was. I can't remember them all, and the Meritorious Service Medal a couple of times, longevity medal which they give here in Illinois for the time you've been. All you get to do is just hang around. You earn that. Meritorious service is pretty much you did your job. You did it pretty well. You stayed out of trouble. I was an expert marksman, which you had to be in a CE unit.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody had to shoot expert.
Did you do or have anything that you did like for luck while you were in there, or any kind of ritual thing?
We had, when we would deploy, and when we pretty much felt we had did what we came to accomplish to do, we would light up cigars, and that was something. Whether you smoked or not, here goes a cigar. One of the trips I was in Honduras, my father smoked cigars, and I brought a whole box of cigars home for him. He quit. Because I was stuck with a whole box of cigars. I had taken them back to the squadron, and they said, "Okay, well now we have our cigars. We don't have to worry about buying any, because Sergeant Stinson is donating 100 cigars so that we can do our little thing." One of the things that I don't think it was good luck, but it was a calling for me, and I did one of those things you did in the old days in the Old Testament. I set up my little altar, and I prayed, get back home safely, make sure my fellow squadron, we all got back home safely. And so I committed to doing something when I got back home. And what I committed to doing, I started a supportive service center for the homeless back in 1992. So we had 25 years now. We've been doing that. And I didn't really want to do it, but it kept pressing on me. So finally, as I got over there, and you kind of get isolated a little bit, and so I decided to do that. I made a commitment to doing that. And one of the things that I remember most significant when we opened up the doors, and when the homeless population started coming in, 1/3 of the homeless population that walked through our doors were military, were veterans, homeless veterans. And then I realized it was all meant to be, because and when you're in the Guards and Reserves, we do nation building. That's what it's called. So that part of the military budget is it's nation building. So it doesn't look like our defense budget is so big, but we go around and we build infrastructure for third world countries. That's what we're doing. We help them get back on their feet. So when I looked at that, then starting this I call it a mission. It's Matthew House, Chicago, and we're located on the south side of Chicago. And it all came together, the stuff that I was learning to help empower people in other countries. Then I was using those skills that I learned from my training as an NCO, organizational wise, being able to see the picture of doing this, meeting goals, setting goals, making those type of goals that enabled me to come home and do things here.
And what was your length of service?
I actually got out in 1998. I went in 1983. It was about just under 16 years. In Chicago, we had some political things going on. They wanted to take control of the military side of O'Hare. So we said, remember when I started off in the reserve unit, the 928th, we got deactivated because the 928 was the landlords for the military side of the airport. So somehow the 928 got deactivated, So that's our one problem. The 126 was still there. So the mayor couldn't get that part of the airport for a lot of years. They finally worked it out. They came up with several $100 million and they built a facility down at Scott Air Force Base in Bellevue. And so our unit moved from O'Hare down to Scott Air Force Base. We had a federal law called RTAP. And so if you had 15 years more, then you can actually retire. So I wasn't going to retire. I actually had went off to the Senior NCO Academy, and I had just got back, and I was offered the job to work for the wing commander down in Peoria as a senior enlisted advisor. He got transferred out, and the new wing commander, he wanted to do the whole process over again. So I was stuck. What if I go and do all this interviewing and do this process, and then he decided he don't want me? Now I got to make this trip back and forth to Scott Air Force Base, which was 305 miles from my doorstep to the front gate. I didn't want to do that. So I went on opt-out. And I just waited around till I got 60, so now I'm getting my pension.
So you came home, and what did you told us a little bit, but what did you do when you were first out?
I got a job working for the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District as a laboratory assistant, and I bided my time to take the operators test. We call them treatment plant operators. And so when I was waiting to take the treatment plant operator test, then I became a lab technician. Then I took the treatment plant operator 1 test, took it, passed it, and got hired. And so for the last 22 years, I've been a treatment plant operator. And I went from being a 1, being a 2, and to a 3, which is a chief operator. And I retired in that position from the skill that I learned in the military. I always said, I thank Uncle Sam for my education.
Well, if you had one thing or something that you could tell to somebody who might view or listen to your interview, like a future generation, what would you tell them?
I would tell them, embrace the opportunities that we have in our country. Don't let people brainwash them and think government is bad. Government is not bad. You have bad people in government, or you have bad leaders. Government is not bad. Government is designed, I think, very well, including the military. There are a lot of advantages in the military. You know, people think that you giving up. Yeah, you are. You giving up your life. You put your life on hold while you're in service, because then your mission is to protect the country. And the country is everybody, including your own family. And I think that's a pretty high calling. And I think men and women are to embrace it and be prepared to learn all they can, and then come back to their civilian lives and go for it. But it's a lot of positive things. I mean, I talked about some negative events, but that would never deter me. If I had to do it all over again, I would do it, knowing I'm going to meet that command sergeant major in Honduras that's going to hate the Air Force because we took his water buffalo. We needed it. How are we going to live in the jungle with no water? We had to have it. So there's pros and cons in everything you do. But I think that, and I talk to young people about that. They ask me about that. What do you think should I go into the military? I say, well, what do you want to do? Are you going to go on and go to college? If you think you're not going to go to college, then how are you going to support yourself on a high school diploma? If you need time to figure it out, and you can follow the instructions, if we say if you can chew bubble gum and walk at the same time, you pretty much would do pretty well in the military. It's just the people that go in with they go in with the problem. The military is not there to solve problems. People think it is. It's not. You have to have something inside here and here, a certain maturity and a certain ambition to succeed. And you will do well in the military. You'll do well in tech schools. You'll do well in city colleges. You'll do well in the universities. It's all a mindset. And I don't think we should look at the military as being a negative way to go. And so I encourage young people, if you're not ready to go to college, and you're not going to go to college, go on in the military. At least take the ASVAB to see what kind of jobs are available. They're going to pay for your education. You can actually graduate from college while you're in the service, because they're going to your education is going to be free. It means you're not going to owe any money.
Keep going.
You're not going to owe any money. You're not going to have a student loan payment to worry about. It's all done.
Well, I want to thank you very much for your time
Mhm.
and for agreeing to talk with us about your military service. I really appreciate it. And thank you, sir, for your service to our country.
And thank you. Thank you all for doing what you're doing today.
You're very
I
welcome.
appreciate it.
Very welcome.